Okay, the final item of business this evening is a members' business debate on motion 16803 in the name of Marie McNair on Testicular Cancer Awareness Month. The debate will be concluded without any questions being put, but I encourage members wishing to participate to press the request to speak buttons. And I invite Marie McNair to open the debate around 7 minutes. Ms McNair.
Thank you, Presiding Officer. I'm grateful to have secured this debate and to end the month of April by discussing testicular cancer awareness. Can I thank my colleagues across the Chamber for supporting my motion and for speaking in tonight's debate. Presiding Officer, I hope everyone will join me in welcoming Richie Marshall and Jennifer Hardy from Gohonas, Scotland, to the gallery this evening. Members will know that Gohonas are Scotland's only dedicated testicular cancer charity. However, they may not know that they are actually based right next door to me in Clydebank. Presiding Officer, testicular cancer may not be the most talked about form of cancer, but that doesn't make it any less important. And that is why I feel it's so important to speak on this matter. Testicular cancer awareness runs throughout the month of April and takes place to highlight the disease and educate people about early detection and treatment. It's also a time to tackle common myths and encourage self-checking. The disease mostly commonly affects people aged between 15 and 45, with approximately 220 people in Scotland diagnosed each year. If detected early, it has more than a 95% cure rate, so awareness of the key symptoms is vital. The symptoms to look out for are an ache or a swelling in the testicle or a dull ache, pain or heaviness in the scrotum. If you notice any of these symptoms, please see a doctor. Don't wait. Testicular cancer doesn't wait, and neither should you. Presiding Officer, I was keen to hold this debate after meeting with Richie and Paul from Gohonas. As I mentioned, they are based in Clydebank, and I know how much work they have done on the matter, so I'm keen to highlight this in Parliament. What struck me most about our conversations was how little attention this type of cancer has received. Unfortunately, far too many don't know the signs or are too afraid or embarrassed to discuss them. Awareness is vital, but currently most young people leave school without knowing how to self-check or what symptoms to look out for. Therefore, I call on the Cabinet Secretary to address what further work can be done working with the Gohonas to secure testicular cancer awareness can be further implemented at a school level. For a bit of context, Presiding Officer, Gohonas was set up in 2009 by founder and chief executive Richie Marshall, and since this time they have been at the forefront of men's health education, working to break down stigma, encourage early detection and ensuring that no one in Scotland faces testicular cancer alone. They have driven by personal experience and built on the belief that education and support saves lives, which I wholeheartedly agree on. I'm always keen to show the good work happening in my constituency, and Gohonas are a great example with their work achieving international recognition. They offer various vital services like education sessions led by their Community Engagement Officer, Paul McCaffrey, whose personal story brings a real-life experience to their messages. Paul discovered a lump 10 years ago after seeing one of Gohonas' self-check guides, which then led him on to his early diagnosis. He has since credited Gohonas for saving his life and is dedicated to helping others to do the same. An honourable cause and one which I thank him for. For international campaigns like Check Your Ball Bags campaign that reach tens of millions of people worldwide, to care packages, peer support and even a podcast, they are ensuring men have access to the knowledge, tools and support to protect their health. Presiding Officer, I'd like to take a moment to tell the story of an individual who received a testicular cancer diagnosis. When I first received my testicular cancer diagnosis, I felt completely alone and unsure of where to turn. Talking about my experience openly on the podcast not only helped me process those overwhelming emotions, but it also reminded me that there are others out there facing the same challenges. Gohonas is doing incredible work, providing not just support, but a sense of community for men going through similar diagnoses. The podcast is a lifeline, offering valuable insights and a space where people can share their stories, learn from others and feel understood. I know firsthand how crucial this kind of support is, and I'm grateful that Cohonas continues to make such a difference in the lives of men like me. I believe this touches on an important point, Presiding Officer. Awareness goes beyond the physical. It's also about mental health, emotional support, building a community where no one feels they must face cancer alone. It's about standing with those going through the treatment too. Testicular cancer isn't just a physical condition, it impacts identity, fertility, relationships and long-term mental health. Cohonas has created that wraparound support, helping men beyond the hospital ward to rebuild their lives and self-confidence. And I'd be interested to see whether better collaboration could be achieved to ensure post-treatment services can be better supported. Awareness starts with a conversation. It starts with breaking down stigma and encouraging our friends and family to know the real strength is found in taking care of yourself. We need to normalise open, honest conversations about men's health, and having spaces where men feel comfortable to ask questions and share concerns without shame is a real core part of this. And to all those battling testicular cancer, you are not alone. And to those like Paul who have come out the other side and used their platforms to help others, thank you for your courage and determination. Therefore, as we end Testicular Cancer Awareness Month, I want to thank all the members here today for attending this debate to help raise awareness, and most of all, my sincere thanks go to Richie, Paul and everyone else involved with Cohonas. You have truly saved lives, and for that I am extremely grateful. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms McNair. We move to the open debate. I call first Edward Mountain, to be followed by Claire Hockey. Around 4 minutes, Mr Mountain.
Thank you very much, Presiding Officer, and I'd like to thank Mary McNair for bringing this debate this evening. It's an important one. Usually in April, Presiding Officer, I have spoken about cancer awareness and bowel cancer awareness specifically, and I've had to mention things which perhaps we don't actually look at until we see these things face to face. So I've talked about blood in your poo and the other symptoms, and I think it's really important that we normalise this, because testicular cancer, which we're talking about tonight, does have a dangerous part of our lives. There's 2,500 new cases every year, and what is clear, it leads to about 65 deaths, I think, each year. But if you catch it early, that's the way to deal with it. So I'm going to try and follow the advice of Kenny Everett, Presiding Officer, and do this in the best possible taste. And on that basis, I'm going to take you on a journey to your local supermarket and take you to the fruit aisle, and very specifically the fruit section where you find pears. And I'm going to ask you to pick up a pear and look at this fruit. And I have to say, while I was researching this speech, I didn't realise there were quite so many varieties of pears available, from conference pears to Concord pears to Taylor Gold to Bartlett's. In fact, some 300 varieties. And when you go to select your pear, you actually have to get what you're given on the supermarket shelves. And if you pick up that pear and it was misshapen, or the pear was hard, or if indeed you pushed it, it caused you pain, you would reject it and you would do something about it. And that takes me back to this subject tonight that we're talking about with testicular cancer. You must, if you find any of those symptoms, do something about it. To do nothing is to endanger your life, because it might be just those symptoms alone, rather than the symptoms of losing weight, having a cough, difficulty breathing, a swollen chest, or actually history of testicular cancer in your family that you are ignoring or you don't recognise. But if you do recognise any of those symptoms, my strong advice is go straight to the doctor early and ask to be tested. So tonight, Presiding Officer, my belief is if we talk normally about testicular cancer and not necessarily compare it to a journey to a supermarket, but if we talk about the symptoms and we raise awareness, we could save lives. And it doesn't matter if that is only one life. That one life is absolutely vital. And I'd like to pay tribute to Kahuna Scotland. Check your brawl balls, I think, and Movember, all charities that are involved in men's health. And I just remind everyone, at any stage when it comes to cancer, if you find something that causes you concern, it will probably cause the doctor concern and will get you checked. And if you get it checked, it might be nothing. But if it is something, you could save your life, and that's really important. Thank you, Presiding Officer.
Thank you very much, Mr Mountain. And I now call Claire Haughey to be followed by Paul Sweeney. Around 4 minutes, Ms Haughey.
Thank you, Presiding Officer. And I want to pay tribute to my colleague Marie McNair on securing today's important debate. In Parliament, we understandably devote a lot of time discussing women's health issues, so I really do welcome the opportunity to speak on a debate with a male focus about testicular cancer. And as we've heard, testicular cancer is the most common cancer amongst UK men aged 15 to 45. 2,400 men are diagnosed in the UK each year. And when looking just at Scotland, there were 175 men diagnosed with testicular cancer between October 22 and September 23. And this is a decrease from October 21 to September 22, with 183 men diagnosed, but an increase from October 2020 to September 21, with 161 diagnosed. And while more than 6 men per day are diagnosed each day across the UK, it's important to note that survival rates have also risen every year since the 1970s. And when detected in its early stages, testicular cancer is 96% curable, and the outlook for testicular cancer is one of the best of all cancers. According to Cancer Research UK, around 95 out of 100 men will survive their cancer for 1 year or more after they're diagnosed, and around 95 out of 100 men will survive their cancer for 5 years or more after diagnosis, and around 90 out of 100 men will survive their cancer for 10 years or more after diagnosis. But Deputy Presiding Officer, men shouldn't allow these survival figures to act as a deterrent for regular checking or to allow men to become complacent. While nearly all men survive testicular cancer, if the cancer has spread, survival for 5 years or more can reduce to 65%. So checking is incredibly important. And the most common symptom is a lump or swelling in a testicle, or a dull ache, pain or heaviness in the scrotum. And usually these symptoms are caused by nothing more than injury or infection. But if you notice any of these signs or a combination of them, don't leave it to chance. Speak to your GP to make sure. Deputy Presiding Officer, I also want to take the time to congratulate Kahuna Scotland, who are based in Marie McNair's constituency, as we've heard from her, for the work that they do to raise awareness of testicular cancer. As Scotland's only dedicated testicular cancer charity, they have a range of resources to raise awareness, offer advice and to support men through their cancer journey. On their website, men can input their mobile number and the charity will text them a monthly self-check reminder at no cost to them. And alternatively, men can sign up for their monthly newsletter for updates, also with a self-check reminder. Deputy Presiding Officer, as is the case with so many men's issues, men are often too uncomfortable in talking about testicular cancer and its prevention. And it's why, when men are brave enough to go public with their diagnosis, it can save lives by bringing a renewed attention and focus on the disease. Members across the chamber may well remember or be aware of former Celtic player Alan Stubbs, who was diagnosed with and survived testicular cancer twice. And although his cancer was initially detected through a post-match drug test, he had been a strong advocate for men to regularly check their testicles for signs of disease. I'm in no doubt that the increased awareness of testicular cancer from people like Alan Stubbs has helped men across the UK and saved their lives. Just in one sec, I just want to clarify something. It was about a hormone that was picked up in that drugs test. It wasn't about picking up substances he shouldn't have had in his body.
I'm sure you'll be very grateful for the clarification. Finlay Carson.
Thank you. Thank you for taking the intervention. I've been there, done that, and went for the examination, and it's very straightforward, and it certainly gives you peace of mind. But do you agree that men often talk about things tangentially in the pub about how many times we maybe got to go to the toilet when we get to a certain age, and they're not embarrassed about that, but testicular cancer is probably just that little bit further. But often raising awareness is about the blokes in the pub and being able to joke about it like Edward Mountain did, and that's how we can get the message out that how important it is that we actually go and get checked.
Claire Hockey, and give you
well, I certainly hope so. Obviously, I'm not privy to a lot of those conversations, not being a bloke in the pub. But as the mother of 3 sons, I would certainly encourage them to talk about their health and to regularly do checks. We've heard about the Cojones Scotland Check Your Baubles campaign at Christmas, which has also ensured that men have got talking about testicular cancer and, more importantly, got them checking. In closing, Presiding Officer, I'd like to thank Marie McNair again for securing today's debate and pay tribute to charities like Cojones Scotland and Cancer Research. Thank you.
Thank you. I now call Paul Sweeney, who joins us remotely, to be followed by Eleanor Whittam. Around 4 minutes. Mr Sweeney.
Thank you, Deputy Presiding Officer, and I would like to also extend my thanks to Marie McNair, the member for Clydebank and Mulgai, for securing this important motion for members' business during Testicular Cancer Awareness Month. And I also echo her commendation of the Cojones charity. Based on her constituency, I've done so much to tackle stigma through good-humoured campaigning. Testicular cancer, as has been mentioned, is the most common cancer amongst men in the UK aged 15 to 45, yet we still know that there is a real sense of stigma associated around this disease. And part of that is understandable. It affects an intimate part of the body, and so for many men who already struggle to talk openly about health issues, the nature of that becomes a step too far for many, and they either don't check for symptoms, ignore symptoms, or simply put off seeking help until it is too late. And yet we know that, like so many conditions, the first step to treatment and recovery is to ask for help and get a diagnosis. And if we are not willing to talk about testicular cancer and act on symptoms when they first present, then lives will be lost that could have been saved. And there's nothing strong or brave about suffering in silence. It is much stronger and braver to reach out and get the help you need. When the survival rate for testicular cancer caught early is 95%, that difference between silence and getting help is literally a matter of life and death. And how many children are without parents, spouses without partners, and parents without children because embarrassment or procrastination meant that help was not sought out when needed. Happy to give way.
Edward Mountain.
Thank you, and I thank the member for taking an intervention. I think the fact that what we read is from testicular cancer, if you have surgery and have one testicle removed, it's not going to affect you. And there are also ways of storing semen should you have to have both removed, which doesn't affect you in the long term. It keeps you alive. And do you think we ought to be discussing that and making clear that treatment is better than nothing at all?
Paul Sweeney, I can give you the time back.
Thank you, Deputy Presiding Officer. I thank Mr Mountain for making those points. And I think that's an important aspect to future campaigning. We know that a lot of current campaigning is around good-natured and humorous campaigns, which are really important. Think of the ball bags underwear or oddballs underwear, for example, or Movember. They are really useful. But also when you look at the HIV stigma campaigns, a lot of that has been associated with changing the narrative that actually it's a condition that no longer presents the critical health implications it once did, and that you can actually live a relatively normal life now. So maybe we need to change those narratives as well about reproductive health for men, which is often not considered when talking about testicular cancer. I think it's a really insightful and important point. And I know many people will, of course, be thinking about Capital Radio DJ Chris Stark, who revealed only last month that he'd undergone chemotherapy for testicular cancer. And I found his public statement to be very moving and hopefully helpful in encouraging others to seek out treatment. So I thought it'd be worth mentioning a few lines from it. He said that the reason I didn't want to share this is that I feel like an idiot that didn't spot this sooner, and that although I'm effectively cured and it was caught early, my hope is that anyone reading this will perhaps think to check themselves today or go to a doctor if not sure about any possible symptoms. Caught early, this cancer is so treatable. It is most common in men aged 18 to 49. I also think it's a tricky subject matter, but I'm really willing to put one ball on the line here. And if it helps make that conversation less tricky for guys, encourages someone to check themselves and potentially saves a life, it was well worth it. And I'm sure the entire Parliament commends Mr Stark for his bravery and wishes him a very swift recovery, and we look forward to hearing him return to the radio soon. Deputy Presiding Officer, Fighting this stigma around testicular cancer must be a priority for this Parliament, particularly as it affects young men who often don't interact with primary care until later in life. So I welcome this debate today, and I hope that the discussion in this chamber will go beyond here and will continue long after parliamentary business has ended for us. If it does, lives will genuinely be saved. So let's all increase those conversations about awareness of testicular cancer, the need for people, men, to check themselves regularly, and to fight against the stigma that stops many asking for help in getting a diagnosis early. We all need to play our part in that discussion, and for that reason, I'm very happy to support the motion this afternoon. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr Sweeney. I now call Eleanor Whittam to be followed by Beatrice Wishart. Again, around 4 minutes. Ms Whittam.
Thank you, Deputy Presiding Officer. I will start by thanking my colleague Marie McNair for bringing this important debate to the Chamber today on a topic that many still find so difficult to talk about. It may be a bit of a stereotype, but I think it's one that definitely holds some truth. Men can be notorious for ignoring their own health. And it's really interesting to note that today we have a woman helping to get the conversation going in Parliament to mark Testicular Cancer Awareness Month. Many of us with men in our life may be all too familiar with the battle of encouraging them to see their GP when they finally disclose to us that they have noticed a change that needs to be checked out. This can be about any part of the body, but when it comes to what's between their legs, the embarrassment factor is ramped up, meaning changes are not discussed nor explored in a timious manner. Deputy Presiding Officer, it shouldn't be this way, and that's why I applaud the efforts of Cohona Scotland, who are working hard to raise awareness about testicular cancer and encourage men to be aware of the symptoms and see their GPs if they notice any changes. They're brilliant and mentioned quite a few times tonight. Stigma Busting Check Your Baubles Christmas campaign has been supported by famous figures like Ayrshire's own footballer Billy Gilmour to help get the message out there that every once in a while, but preferably monthly, men need to check their testicles. As we've heard today, if testicular cancer is detected early, there is a 95% cure rate, and survival rates have risen every year since the 1970s. But it can only be detected early if men know what to look out for and are proactive themselves. So just to repeat the symptoms and really hammer the message home, be aware of a lump, swelling, heaviness, discomfort or pain. I would encourage all men listening today, as others have said, to head to the Cohona Scotland website and sign up for their monthly self-check reminder, ensuring that they get a text once a month to remind them to give themselves a quick examination following the handy guide that can be found on their website. A quick check after a bath or a shower is the best plan and something all men should work into their schedules. And as we've just heard from Paul Sweeney, we also have the call of Capital Radio presenter Chris Stark, who recently announced he was diagnosed with testicular cancer, but thankfully it was caught early and he is now effectively cured. And he wants all other men to set aside their blushes and encourage each other to check themselves. It just might save someone's life. Cohona Scotland have launched a new campaign called Check Your Balls for Life, to mark Testicular Cancer Awareness Month. LIFE stands for lumps, irregularities, firmness and enlargement. Deputy Presiding Officer, the good news is that most symptoms aren't caused by cancer, but it is important for men to keep calm and contact their GP to double check. I'm eager to hear from the Minister today about what steps the Scottish Government has or could take to spread awareness and educate men about this issue further, especially from a young age, as we know that most cases of testicular cancer affect those aged 15 to 45. And we need this knowledge to be understood and widely known as breast self-examination is for women. That's something that's hammered home to us at a very early age. So we need young men to be leaving school and leaving education, understanding why it's so important that they give themselves a check. What we've heard today is overall a positive message for men. Testicular cancer is very rare in Scotland, and it's also easy to diagnose and treat. But that only is possible if we get the message out there. Get men to talk and take responsibility for their health, and get them on their phone to their GP if they need to be. But just forget about the embarrassment. There's prosthetics and all sorts out there, so you don't have to worry about having one ball. You can have two at the end of this anyway. Thank you.
Thank you. I now call Beatrice Wishart to be followed by Fulton McGregor, around 4 minutes. Ms Wishart.
Thank you, Presiding Officer, and thank you to Marie McNair for securing this opportunity to talk about testicular cancer. And thank you to Cohona Scotland, which, as the motion states, is Scotland's only dedicated testicular cancer charity. As others have said, testicular cancer is rare in that it's a cancer more likely to be found in young men, most commonly affecting those aged between 15 and 45. Early detection and treatment are key, with a 95% cure rate when found early. And as the motion highlights, approximately 220 people in Scotland are diagnosed each year. The latest NHS Shetland data shows very low numbers of testicular cancer patients in the Isles over the last 5 years. With no diagnosis in 2020 or 2021, that may have had something to do with people avoiding seeing the doctor during the height of the COVID pandemic. All cases over the past 5 years in Shetland were treated within the target period. Of course, low numbers don't make island men indestructible. And just as women are encouraged to regularly check their breasts for any lumps, bumps or changes, so too should men self-check themselves. Edward Mountain is right that we need to normalise these discussions, and Claire Hockey made the point that we often speak about women's health, and so I'm happy to contribute to this debate on men's health and set aside my own discomfort. So checking in the shower is recommended. Feeling the weight, often testicles are different sizes, but they shouldn't feel heavier or larger than usual. Things to look out for are lumps, heaviness, build-up of fluid in the scrotum, pain and or discomfort in the testicles or scrotum, and pain in the lower back. These symptoms can be caused by injury or infection rather than cancer. It's important then to see your doctor if you notice any of these signs or a combination of them. Knowing what's normal for you will help you spot changes. Education is vital, and I support calls for greater awareness raising and reducing stigma and myth busting. Don't let embarrassment put you off going to see your GP. Before I conclude, I want to raise the 13-month delay of the proposed SWIFT Urological Response Evaluation, or SURE unit, at Aberdeen Royal Infirmary, which is of serious concern. NH Grampian works closely with NH Shetland, treating many of my constituents with health care not available in the islands. The SURE unit will cover patients needing treatment for urological cancers, including prostate, penis, kidney, bladder, as well as testicular cancer. With plans first mooted in 2021, hopes had been to have patients seen in the department by May. I recognise the financial issues at NHS Grampian, but I would appreciate it if the Minister could use some of their time to address this point in her response. Thank you, Presiding Officer.
Thank you, Ms Wishart. And I call the final speaker in the open debate, Fulton McGregor, up to 4 minutes.
Thank you, Presiding Officer. I hadn't initially intended to speak in this debate, so I do thank you for being able to take me, and I might not use up my whole time. Like others have said, my thanks to Marie McNair for bringing this debate to the attention of the Chamber, a very important one. And I thought I would rise to speak as a man to say that I agree with what's been said. It isn't an area that is often talked about. I think that when socialising with other male friends, it probably isn't a particular health area that we would talk about, and it's why it's so important that campaigns such as those we've heard about today continue to go ahead across the world. And that's actually why I chose to speak, Presiding Officer, because I wanted to pay a particular tribute to the Kahuna Scotland campaign, as is mentioned in the motion and by all our speakers. I think we're all used to interacting here every year with the Check Your Bobos campaign, which has been extremely effective. And I think that one of the reasons that it's been so effective is because it's pushed the boundaries. And because I recall the first time that I got involved in it and was getting my partner to take pictures of me at the Christmas tree, she actually did ask at one point while she was doing it, while she wasn't fully questioning it, she said, "Are you sure you'll be all right to do this, that you know, you won't get into any trouble?" And I was saying, "Oh no, such and such has done it, so I'm definitely fine." And that was the first year. But it was interesting that people were asking those questions, and that shows you, I think, because it did push the boundaries, it was an effective campaign, and indeed it did, because it had very vast amounts of celebrity endorsements every year. And it became a common theme on Twitter. At one point, Twitter was good, if people remember right, before the last couple of years. And it was very common to see celebrities popping up on your feed with supporting that campaign. And in fact, in the first year that I done it, and I think it might have actually been the first year of the campaign, actually, I was retweeted by none other than William Shatner himself. It's my claim to fame, Presiding Officer. And he retweeted me to say, well, this looks a really good idea. I think he was actually giving me the credit for the idea, but he quickly would have learned it was indeed kahunas. But the kudos I got in here the following day from colleagues that had been retweeted by William Shatner, and out there as a verified Trekkie myself, although I was more of a Next Generation fan, it was really good. So I do recall that, and it showed you the people that were becoming involved in it. I think actually William Shatner after that went on to do his own one as well. I have to say that I didn't, and this is the first year, Christmas past, that I didn't do one for a while, and that is because I did have a look and I used the hashtag and I didn't see a lot coming up. That's not to say that it definitely wasn't. Don't know if it's maybe Move Forum or whatever, but I didn't really see a lot of it this year. I just wonder with kahunas in the chamber if it is possible to either bring it back, or if it was back this year, just maybe a bit less noticeable, if we could have a bit more on it next year, because I do think it is a very effective campaign, although I can see the arguments for why maybe taking a year's break or a year a wee bit lower profile is a good idea as well, because you want it to have the same impact and people not feeling they're doing the same photo every 12 months. But overall, I don't want that to be seen as a criticism. I've pressed my button to speak today because I think the work the kahunas do are absolutely fantastic. I wanted to add my voice to that, and I want to say to them today to keep it up, and to say, as all speakers have done for men, to check themselves regularly and don't be shy. I include myself, Edward Mountain, Paul Sweeney and others on that, and don't be shy if we find something to go to the GP. Thanks, Presiding Officer.
Thank you. I now invite Jenny Minto to wind up the debate. Minister, around 7 minutes.
Thank you, Presiding Officer. And I'd too like to thank my colleague Marie McNair for bringing this motion to the Chamber today and reminding us all of the impact that diagnosis and treatment for testicular cancer can have. In addition, I'd also like to thank Kahunas Scotland for their continued efforts in both raising awareness and supporting those affected by testicular cancer. And it's great to see you and welcome you to the Chamber tonight. And also to all my colleagues who have contributed tonight. Thank you for sharing your insights, and if I may, to Edward Mountain, it was certainly done in the best possible taste. And I think that's been the underlying comments from all of the contributions, is that men and previously women need to speak about these the various cancers. And Finlay Carson, I absolutely agree that where men can speak in more relaxed circumstances, and perhaps more relaxed than this chamber, although I think we've done really well tonight, it's something that I recognise from visits that I've done with regards to other cancers as well. And one woman specifically spoke to me about the fact that she learned more about her reproductive health and was able to share that with her husband, who was then able to speak about that when he was out with his friends as well.
Finlay Carson.
Minister, for giving way. I think one of the issues is if a man does have an issue and gets it checked, he's not likely to talk about it. It's sadly, too often it's only when men are diagnosed with testicular or prostate cancer that they actually go out there and talk about it. But perhaps you'd have more people actually saying that they had a concern when they had it checked and it was fine, and that would maybe encourage more men to go.
Minister.
Absolutely, and I think that's certainly how, as my colleague Claire Haughey talked about, and also Elena Whittam, the breast cancer awareness and the checking as well. And I think that what Kahunas Scotland have done in their website has made that so accessible. And Marie McNair asked me to talk about the education side as well, and the importance of recognising that it's young men from 15 onwards that could be diagnosed. And I think that's something that the website does really well. It shows a father and a son. I think inspirational using Sean Batty to do the interview as well, given that he is so well recognised and known about. And then both as Paul Sweeney has talked about, Chris Stark from Capital Radio X Radio 1 as well, someone that younger people will know about. And I think Paul Sweeney was correct when he talked about changing the narrative, which is exactly what Finlay Carson has just indicated there as well. And as Elena Whittam said, we all need to set aside our blushes and ensure that this is something that we can talk about. So I think opportunities in this chamber allow us to do that. The Scottish Government published an ambitious 10-year cancer strategy in June 2023, and we absolutely remain determined to improve cancer survival rates and provide excellent and equitable care for all people facing cancer. The strategy takes a comprehensive approach to improving patient pathways in cancer, from prevention and diagnosis right through to treatment and post-treatment care. We all know, as Marie McNair has said, that April is Testicular Cancer Awareness Month, and to mark this, the Scottish Government lit up St Andrew's House in blue on the 16th of April, and we will continue to do so every year. We also continue to invest in our Detect Cancer Earlier programme, which every contributor tonight has commented on the importance of detecting testicular cancer earlier. And we recognise very much that the earlier cancer is detected, the easier it is to treat. So we continue to invest in cancer diagnostics and efforts to reduce waiting times. We also reran the award-winning awareness campaign, Be the Early Bird, back in March. And again, this is a campaign that really encourages and empowers people and tries to reduce the fear of cancer, or the stigma of cancer as well, which has been talked about, and encourage people to act as early as possible. And our Get Checked Early online resource has a wealth of information on testicular cancer. The interview with Paul McCafferty of Cojones Scotland, who has, as others have said, lived experience, is well worth watching and learning from. And I'm also delighted to hear that he's accepted an invitation to attend a reception at Buckingham Palace this week to spotlight Cojones Scotland's work as they celebrate community-based initiatives, raising awareness about cancer and supporting those living with cancer. As others have said, although it's a relatively rare cancer, testicular cancer is the most common type of cancer to affect men between 15 and 45 years old. However, it's also one of the most treatable types, and survival rates are among the best for cancer. And as we've heard tonight, unfortunately, men are often reluctant to seek healthcare advice and support, as evidenced by a recent Health Insight survey from the Office of National Statistics. But I hope tonight has allowed people much more ability to speak about testicular cancer.
Edward Mountain.
I thank the Minister for giving way. One thing's clear, that it often runs in a family. So is there any way that the Minister could direct the Health Service to alert people who've got testicular cancer in their family to carry out these checks on a regular basis? That may be one way of reducing it quite quickly and simply.
Minister.
Edward Mountain for his intervention and also that suggestion. I'm very happy to take that away and explore what more we could be doing. I think your analogy, as I said earlier, was extremely helpful, and I think you basically summarised it by we've got to listen to our bodies and make sure we speak to your doctor, and I think I'll certainly take away that suggestion from Mr Mountain. And now, as Marie McNair and everyone else has said, Cojones Scotland is the only dedicated testicular cancer charity, and it absolutely recognises the value in educating everyone about the signs and symptoms of this cancer and the importance, as I've said, of early detection through regular self-checking. Their work is invaluable. And as I've said, I've spent some time looking at their website, and it does have some fantastic resources, including how to carry out self-checks and a text service, as both Claire Hockey and Elena Whittam mentioned, to send reminders to do this. education saves lives, and that's absolutely correct. And if I may just touch on Beatrice Wishart's question around the SURE unit in Aberdeen. The CAB Secretary has been dealing with this, and I'm happy to follow up in writing. But I understand that NHS Grampian is committed to refurbishing an alternative site, and the intention is to provide a facility excellent for the SURE unit, but I will follow up in writing after the debate. Thank you to Fulton McGregor for his personal experience and engagement in the annual Check Your Baubles campaign each December. I know it's hugely helped to reduce the stigma and embarrassment when talking about testicular cancer, and I congratulate him on his Star Trek connections, but also very much Gohonas Scotland, their global reach that this campaign, perhaps even intergalactic reach that their campaign has had. It is that wraparound service that's so important, and I noted too that Sam Hewan is also an ambassador for the charity because his brother Sardan was diagnosed with testicular cancer. So that engagement is incredibly important. So, Presiding Officer, in closing, I'd like to make clear the Scottish Government's enduring commitment to improving testicular cancer awareness. In doing so, we can improve early diagnosis rates as well as improve patient experience and overall outcomes. And it's crucial that we continue to raise awareness of cancer symptoms. And I'd like to thank gratefully everyone who is helping to do so, to extend, as Elena Whittam said, people's life. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Minister. That concludes the debate, and I close this meeting of Parliament.